Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and this is episode number 55 of my This and That series. I haven't done one in a long time. Do not confuse this with my vlog. They're not the same. So I've got several things I want to show you or tell you in this episode. Mainly viewer appreciation gifts. I've just got a whole load of them, so bear with me on that. Thank you everybody for that. And I'm sorry if I missed someone or forgot your name or something like that, but let's begin. I have a bunch of things that I want to show you. As I was preparing for this video, I moved some things around on a shelf, and this glue bottle had leaked. How that can leak, I don't know, but it's pretty old. Onto a shelf and just totally ruined this Starrett ruler, which obviously is not satin chrome, but look at that. That's going to the garbage can along with it. And don't tell me I ought to try to restore, because I got a million of them. Now there's a lot of videos coming up. One on the hand vise. Well, you might have seen that already. One on this walnut toolbox that I bought. Watch for that. And let's see what else we got here. One on the vernier tooth caliper, and you all saw this on the machinist jack. Well, there's a bunch more coming up where I use 3D printed patterns in 3 sizes to produce a bunch of castings, so I'm going to machine those in various sizes, probably specializing in the smaller ones, so watch for all of that stuff. Might be something you like. Okay, I may be repeating myself, but did I tell you that I received this digital electronic height gauge from Banggood? No charge, it was given to me. But I'm going to talk about this. There'll be a 3-part video. Part 1 is going to be about height gauges in general, showing you all the different ones I have. Part 2 will specialize in this, where I check it for accuracy. Actually, it's a pretty nice tool, very heavy. And then part 3, I don't have it here for you, I'm going to show you, I own it. I own the world's most accurate height gauge. So we'll be talking about that, discussing it, and reviewing that for you. So watch for that 3-part video series. I haven't done it yet. I'm kind of excited to do it. Okay, I'm out in the garage now, and I have mounted the little woodworking vise on the bench for Henry, and I couldn't put it at the end because there's interferences with the table leg, but I had Henry working last night. I didn't film any of that, but he was pounding nails into in the end grain, small brads, and he had a blast doing that. It's easier to drive them in the end grain, you know, when you're 4.5 years old, so I hope to get him interested in that. He won't stick with it very long, you know how children are. But I have, from my buddy Ted in Wisconsin, who makes 3D patterns for me, a pattern. I haven't made it yet. Now notice I know Henry's backwards, but on the other half is Henry, the way you can read it. Now Ted already made one of these in aluminum as a test piece. I'm not totally positive I will make a video of this because I've done so many vices. Thank you, Ted, for making the patterns, and this actually will be a vise like this. I used to make it at the high school, made hundreds of those. It's essentially a copy of a Stanley vise. But that's what that's all about. I'm not sure if I have talked about that, but getting back to this, which I just showed you out in the garage. I'm in the basement now. There's another set of castings for that. But I have an offer for my buddy Clark down in Mississippi. He runs Windy Hill Foundry, and I hope you've watched some of his videos. But he said, go ahead and send the patterns down to him, which I'm going to do, and he's going to make me a set of castings in cast iron, at which time I will remake this in with the cast iron. Not sure I will film that because it would be a repetition. They will be very heavy. These aluminum castings are pretty heavy. let alone cast iron, which is 2 or 3 times as much in weight. Thank you so much to Perry Armstrong, who lives in the great state of Vermont. I've never been there, but he sent me a half-gallon, haven't opened it yet, of grade A amber rich taste maple syrup. Can't wait to have my wife make me some French toast with this. We don't have a waffle maker, but you know, every time I go, I just was in a motel. They always have a waffle maker there. You know, my wife makes me waffles. I don't operate that kind of machinery, but so thank you, Perry. That is going to be delicious. I believe I already showed in a recent video a nice bag of peanuts that I got from an anonymous viewer. He told me his name, but he didn't want it mentioned. But there they are, Pearson Farm, and these are in the shell because I was talking about nutcrackers at one time. That's how this all started. But then about a month later, I get this big box from my friend that lives not too far from here. He's an electrician and an air conditioning man and all of that. He wired my closing mill. You might remember that, Dale Greenlaw. And he sent me, and these were drop shipped from Fairhope, Alabama, 2 bags of pecans, one in the shell. This is in the shell, and this one is already shelled and ready. Boy, those would be great in cookies or sweet rolls or something. So thank you so much, Dale, for that. And you know, the shipping on something like this is kind of expensive. And then I noticed on that Vermont syrup that it was $15 just to mail it here. So I really appreciate people sending me those expensive gifts that are even more expensive to ship. And I have seen the pecan groves in Alabama. I've driven by hundreds of them, but it's always during the winter, so I've never seen them in bloom or in leaf. But pecans are wonderful nuts, aren't they? Joe Stefano out of New York sent me a box, odds and ends of tools here. Some probably aren't going to be too useful, but I think this is stuff that he got at an auction. But you know, there's a big reamer, and so there's some scrapers, and well, there's another reamer, adjustable reamer, and so on. I think this is a foundry tool, and some old chisels and so on. Also, he sent me this item, which I'm not going to show you anymore because that will appear in What Is It? And thank you, Joe. He's just got a J here. I believe it's Joe. Thank you, Mr. Stefano. Christopher O'Brien sent me something interesting, and he had bought my Logan course, has Logan lathe, and he had made herringbone gears to turn the machine into, these are 3D printed, maybe I said that, into metric, transposing gears. So this is a little storage case showing the mesh of the gears. I think most of you know what herringbone gears are. They're just so neat the way they mesh. So thank you, Chris, for that. And a long letter explaining all of this, more than what I can explain in this brief video. And I have to confess, I do not know a lot about herringbone gears myself, but they're intriguing to look at. Remember that these 3D printed gears are quite durable and actually can be used in place of metal gears, surprisingly enough. This is the back of the box. It's kind of hard to photograph. Notice the hinge, the 3D printed hinge. I'll swear the second I turn the camera on, the furnace or the air conditioner fires up. I'm not kidding. It's almost like it's a conspiracy. Alright, I forgot to tell you something a little while ago when I was talking about the hand vices, and I did show this in a recent video. I often use this. I hold it in the bench vise, and convert the bench vise into a small vise for my small work. And I love this little vise. You've seen it before, and it is zinc. It's die cast. This is a magnet. It's die cast. Now I just kind of rediscovered this. I thought I lost it or sold it or something, but no, I still got it. And it is so similar. At first I thought maybe it even was the same manufacturer because they are both dovetail. By the way, on this one you can see the ejector marks from the die casting machine, but this one is not the same. It is, first of all, it's made of cast iron. And it's got the base, and it's nickel plated plus painted. A little bit of rust here. This is just a gorgeous piece. And you vise lovers have to love this as well. And it could be mounted on a bench. It's got screws. It probably was in a jewelry shop at one time. Who knows? What do you think? Terry Titus out of Florida, actually he winters in Florida, now he's home, I believe it's in Iowa, but he sent me several gifts here. This is one of them, but first of all, here's a Starrett radius gauge, and I do not own that particular model, so that'll be part of the collection. A long letter, and then in this box is Mark's Standard Handbook Mechanical Engineering. This is the 8th edition from 1978, and this is one that he actually used. His name is in here in his work. But this is something like Machinery Handbook, but it's more engineering. And I did have a copy of that, but mine is from 1951, the 5th edition, much different size. This one's thicker and larger. And the back on this one is broken, and it's just in terrible shape, so I'm thankful to have a better copy of that and a newer one. Thank you, Terry. Then a week later I received another box from Terry, even bigger, and he has gifted to me many magazines, and here we have some blueprints from engines and various things. There's a 2-cycle engine, very detailed working drawings, probably more than what I can ever do in a lifetime. But it's fun to look through blueprints, but also in the box, these are British publications, you may recognize them, but there's a book 2 of a hot air engine, steam engine boiler, and then some catalogs. There's Jacob's Chucks. And a lot of model engineering magazines, miniature engineering, and some of these are British, some I believe from Australia. I have not had the chance to look through all of them yet, but there's just a lot of good stuff here. And he said there's probably more coming next year. This is all he could carry. Well, matter of fact, he couldn't carry anything in his car as he moved back north for the summer, so at great expense he mailed this to me. So thank you, Terry, for some good reading. And there's Machinist magazine in here as well, the Home Shop Machinist, American Workshop, and so on. Bear with me if I've already shown this, but many of you watched my video series where I made this float lock vise for drill presses. Well, one Mr. Dan Wagner out of Ohio, who is quite a machinist and has made a lot of my projects, sent me this miniature model of, it is so cute, of a float lock vise to fit on my small drill presses, and this is my Cameron, although he suggested using it on the Dumore, and I will have to do a little bit of a modification to get that clamp to fit over here properly so this has the movement that I need. But look at how beautifully this is made, and then he used bluing on it, like gun bluing. And it's just perfectly to scale. Even has the little V-way there and the little notch at the top. Beautiful little handle. So thank you, Dan, for that. Nicely made handle here. Isn't that cute? I am planning a video on worthless tools, novelty tools, mustache trimmers, and so on. So be thinking about that, and perhaps some of you will have pictures to send or remarks on useless tools, often given as Christmas presents, door prizes, and Father's Day. You know, imagine getting this for Father's Day. You know, you could turn a beautiful day into a bad one real quickly, couldn't you? Thank you, Bill Paradis of Bellevue, Illinois, who sent me several items here. Perhaps I should have put this in what is it, but he said that these are parts of an optical comparator, but I just don't recognize any of these parts. Some quite intricate, as you can see. So I'm not sure what they're for. He packed them real well. Some have a tag on them. Surplus equipment from Purdue University. Did I ever tell you that my brother taught at Purdue, the Calumet campus, for several years? But there's a nice V block there. Maybe I can use that for something else. And that, again, not sure what it is, but thanks anyway, Bill. Take care. Quick story about a toolbox and my dad. My dad had given my brother a gerstner chest made of oak, very similar to this, but it didn't really have a top on it that you could open like this. It was just a handle here, and I believe it was leather, and it was filled with tools. So my dad was carrying this down the basement steps. This would be about 1961 approximately, and as he came down the steps holding it by this handle, this fell open. I don't know why it fell open, but at that point all of the drawers fell out with the tools because it was tilted at that angle, and several of the drawers were broken in here, and the knobs broke off. They were some kind of plastic knob, and oh, my brother he was really mad at my dad, even though my dad gave him the chest. And I was standing there, and I just felt bad. I left. I took off with my buddy on my bicycle to avoid conflict. Jim Allison out of California sent me a long letter and a box full of things out of the clear blue sky, and thank you ever so much, Jim, for that. But among these are, and there also was a flash drive that had pictures of the big boy steam engine. So, and I haven't listened to this yet, but this is a CD, and it's the sound of railroad train. So I'm going to put that in the car. You know, my newest car doesn't have a CD player. They don't put CD players in new cars anymore. So I'll listen to that. But this one, and I won't read this till next winter. And you know, it cost $15 to send this. He should have sent it by media. But this is a story about a B-17 crew who was, and you may have heard about this, was in trouble, and a Messerschmitt basically escorted them and didn't shoot at them. So I'm sure this is heartwarming and will make me cry, but I will read that. And it's a special interest to me because the B-17 has always been my favorite World War II airplane, even though my dad worked on B-29s, but this is probably the only thing I own that my dad actually made, and it would have been made during the war, maybe before I was born or about the time I was born. But they did a lot of model making at that time, silhouettes, so that people could learn what a friendly plane looked like as opposed to enemy planes. And there were silhouette books also. But this hung above my bed by this piece of fishing string for 12 years when I was a boy. And I would lay in bed at night. Of course, I was a hopeless insomniac even then, looking at this plane. And in the summer when Dad had the fan on, this thing would, I can't believe that string didn't break. It just did that. And so I hope that my own kids appreciate this someday. And Dad did a nice job on it. It was all glossy like this, I think, at one time. I can't believe we didn't break this as kids, because kids break everything. And these planes, I think this is the one that Jimmy Stewart flew in as a crew member. These planes and many others are the ones that gave us freedom, overcame fascism and Nazism and communism and all of that, so that people could walk in the streets of New York and destroy it. Did I just ruin a good video with something political? I don't believe that's political. I put this tag on the airplane, and that's already 12 years ago that I did that, hoping that my grandkids would like this someday and know what it's all about. How's this for contrast? Here's a portable mobile machine shop from World War I, built on a Pierce Arrow chassis, generator and all. Notice the drill press and the grinder and the lathe. And here's a more modern version of it from World War II, equipped with a South Bend lathe. Much more modern truck. Thanks for watching. Be sure and watch my many issues of the vlog lately, where I'm discussing selling all this junk and moving to a decent climate. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. See you next time.